I praise Allah as He deserves to be praised, and I ask Him to send His peace and His blessings upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family members, his companions, and all of those who followed his way of life. Dear brothers and sisters, we begin to talk about 5 character traits that help us to be successful in this world and in the hereafter as well. This time, on this Friday, we will be talking about one of these character traits, which is honesty and integrity. Obviously, we all know honesty, it means to be truthful. It means to say the truth and to abstain from lying. However, when you look in the world, there are a lot of people out there that deceive others, lie to others. They do not fulfill their promises as well. They say one thing and they do something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, وَأَوْفُوا الْعَهْدَ إِنَّ الْعَهْدَ كَانَ مَسْئُولًا. Fulfill the trust. Fulfill the trust you have with God. Fulfill the trust that you have with people. Because in the day of judgment, or even in this world, the ahad, the trust, is something that you will be asked for. You will be responsible for. In other words, whenever we make a promise, whenever we say yes to something, whenever there is a time, whenever we need to speak, we always have to say the truth. Because when you say the truth and you fulfill the promise, you remain truthful in your promise, then you will gain good deeds. Otherwise, a person may gain bad deeds because of that. Or as a matter of fact, the person will gain bad deeds for not being truthful. And according to a hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu, we also know that the person will continue to be truthful, until that person is written in the book of God as a truthful person. It will be sealed that he's a truthful person or she's a truthful person. And a person will continue to lie until it reaches a point where that person is sealed in the book of God as a liar. We all love to be sealed in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as people of sidq, as people of sincerity, as people of truthful, as people who fulfill their promises. Now, there is also an ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Nahl, وَلَا تَشْتَرُوا بِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا إِنَّمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. When it comes to betray, the Quran says, do not betray that ahad. Do not betray that trust that you have. Whether, again, it is with Allah or it is with people. Do not betray that trust for a small price. Why do people betray their trusts? They betray their trusts because of either laziness, they don't want to fulfill it, or sometimes they betray their trust because they have a personal interest or interest of other people around. And sometimes they betray their trust because of fear. So here, integrity kicks in. Integrity is when a person is always truthful and protects that truthfulness, does not go right and left, but remains steady, does not compromise, remains steady, and always says the truth regardless of what the situation is. There is a hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam that comes to us from Sayyidina Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. قال فلما خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال لا إيمان لمن لا أمانة لا إيمان لمن لا آمنة له ولا دين لمن لا عهد له. رواه Imam al-Bayhaqi في شعب الإيمان. So Sayyidina Anas narrates that Rasulullah ﷺ addressed us by saying, he who is not trustworthy has no faith. So again, scholars, they talk about this hadith. They say that this is not somebody who may slip once or twice or here and there. But we're talking about, even though slipping once or twice, it is sinful, but it doesn't mean that he has no faith when he does it once or twice. We're talking about somebody who has embedded this character, this bad character, and acts upon it by being an untruthful person. So when a person is considered to be untruthful, period, that person has no faith. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says. Why? Because it goes against all the principles of our deen. And then he says, وَلَا دِينَ لِمَنْ لَا عَهْدَ لَهُ لَا إِيمَانَ لِمَنْ لَا أَمَانَةَ لَهُ. The one who has no amana, the one who does not fulfill the promise or does not have, the trust, that person has no iman, has no faith. So these are very, very essential principles that our deen teaches us to fulfill. Otherwise, we will be, as I said, in contradiction with our own deen, with our own faith. Now, how was the personality of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because we always, the first one that we look into in order to learn from and to emulate is our beloved Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And we know that prior to even receiving the revelation from God, prior to declaring the prophethood to the people and calling people to La ilaha illallah, we know that he was called Al-Amin, the trustworthy person. Sadiq, Al-Wa'd, Al-Amin. So, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be known for the one to preserve or keep the precious things that people at that time wanted to put into the trust of someone. Imagine banks nowadays, you would put your money into banks and sometimes you cannot even trust the banks. Right? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was a very trusted person because he would keep these precious things, and whenever the time came for those people to receive back their precious things, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would give back. So he was known to be a trusted person prior to being a prophet. As a matter of fact, not only that, but now we see in the personality of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam a very important conversation that took place between Heraclius, who was the emperor of the Byzantine Empire at that time in Damascus, with Abu Sufyan, who was the leader of the Quraysh. There was an interesting conversation. It's a long conversation. But from this conversation, I have taken a part to read today so we can elaborate a little bit more on the honesty and the truthful of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mentioned by his own enemy at that time. Abu Sufyan was his enemy. So what does he say to Heraclius when Heraclius asks Abu Sufyan? He's in the presence of this emperor now, and Prophet ﷺ has sent a letter to Heraclius inviting him to Islam. Now, Heraclius wants to make sure that this letter is legit. This person who's sending this letter is a legit person. So he brings in front of him a caravan, including their leader, Abu Sufyan, to talk about this man who's claiming to be a prophet. So among these questions that he asks, he says, have you ever accused him of telling lies before his claims of being a prophet? Did he lie before? And then Abu Sufyan said no. So the enemy is saying no. He's not known to be a liar. He has never told lies before. And number two, Heraclius asks him, does he break his promises? So it's about being truthful and also being trustworthy. Truthful and trustworthy by not breaking the amana here, by not breaking the trust. And I replied, he says, Abu Sufyan, no, he does not break the trust. We are at truce with him right now. It was a time when people of Medina, Muslims, they had a truce with the people of Quraysh, but we do not know what he will do in it. So we have a truth. I cannot speak about the future pretty much, but so far he hasn't. He has always kept his trust. I could not find any opportunity, he says, to say anything against him except that. And we know that he had people behind him. And if he would lie in front of the emperor, his life could be in jeopardy. So he wanted to be honest and he wanted to say the truth. Otherwise, people behind him may react like, that's not true what he's saying. So now, listen to the response of the emperor. As a matter of fact, the emperor gave response to all the questions that he asked and the reasons why he asked those questions to Abu Sufyan. So in regards to this particular point about lying and being trustworthy, he says, when I ask you whether he was ever blamed for telling lies, your reply was in the negative, meaning that he doesn't say lies. So I took it for granted that a person who did not tell a lie about others, that the people could never tell a lie about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he would, if he is not lying for other ordinary things on day-to-day basis, then how will it be possible for him to tell the people a great lie? La ilaha illallah, I'm a prophet of God, there is Quran, and so on and so forth. So even the enemies of Islam at that time, they had to speak about the positiveness of a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam in regards to his honesty and trustworthiness without being compromised. And when these are not compromised, there is the quality of integrity. Now, when a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent his first immigrants, because they were suffering under the Qurayshis in Mecca, so he sent his first immigrants in Abyssinia, in Ethiopia. And there was a king who was a Christian king. We all know this story. And we know that the delegation from Mecca came to the king since they had good relations, and they wanted the immigrants to be returned back so they can punish them. Because they're destroying now relations with even other countries. Now, the king, before making a decision, he tells, he asks these immigrants, he asks questions like, who are you? What are you here for? I want to make sure that I'm fair. I'm not sending you to imprisonment. I'm not going to be the cause of your killing without having you speak about yourselves, your religion, and your Prophet ﷺ as well. What did Ja'far radiallahu anhu say to the king of Abyssinia? It's a long conversation. It's not too long, but he gives in a very nutshell, probably in like 3-4 paragraphs, he gives everything you need to know about Islam. This is the most beautiful description about our faith and what Islam commands us to do. So from these words, he says, he ordered us, when he speaks on behalf of the Prophet, or when he speaks about the Prophet, he says, he ordered us to speak the truth. So he's highlighting this. To fulfill all that is entrusted to us. To care for our relatives. Now these are all connected with each other, right? Trust, sincerity in all of this starts with to care for our relatives, to be kind to our neighbors, to refrain from what is forbidden, and from bloodshed. He has forbidden us from engaging in obscene and shameful acts, from speaking falsehood again, from devouring the property of the orphans. People, they can justify, they can make up excuses for devouring the property or the wealth of the orphans, and from vilifying virtuous women. He commanded us to worship God alone and to assign no partners unto Him, to pray, to pay zakat, and also to fast. We deemed Him truthful, subhanallah. We deemed Him truthful in what He's saying. Why? Because He has already proven through His character. We deemed him truthful, and we believed in him, and we followed the message he brought us from God. These were the words of Sayyidina Ja'far delivering or mentioning to the king of Abyssinia at that time. Now, we also want to talk a few things about integrity. As I said, integrity is to maintain that honesty and truthfulness in your life. Not just to be once, but to be constantly an honest person and a truthful person. So, look at the justice, truthfulness, and honesty of Nabi alayhi salatu salam. One lady, it's a short story, one lady from the tribe Banu Khuzayma stole something. And she was about to receive the punishment for that. Now in Islam, the punishment, we know that there is a cutting of the hand. But that is not the cutting of the hand. It's easy just to say one sentence, but there is a lot more to it. When a person does out of hunger, when a person does that out of an extreme need, when a person steals petty things, there is no cutting of the hand. But there is a cutting of the hand if a person does this constantly, if a person is known to be a thief, and if a person is stealing something that is considerate. So there is a full intention of doing it. So then there is the punishment according to our Sharia by cutting the hand. So they sent, the tribe of Khuzaymah, they sent to Hibbu Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was Usama bin Zayd, the son of Sayyidina Zayd. Zayd was considered to be like the son of Nabi alayhi salatu salam, like an adopted son. Not according to, of course, the common understanding of adopted son, because they don't, in Islam, they don't inherit the wirath or the wealth or anything like that, and they don't even take the name because they're not related by blood, but like an adopted son of the Prophet. In other words, he raised him up. He was in his house all the time. So now his son, Usama, is being approached by these tribe members, and they say, you are the beloved of the Prophet. He had this laqab, he had this name, Hibbu Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the beloved of a Nabi alayhi salatu salam. So you go to him and plea on our behalf so she can be forgiven. And then when a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is approached by Usama himself, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, let's do something because this is an honorable tribe, it's complicated, this and that, so let's see if we can let this go. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he stood up and he made a speech at that time. ثم قال فخطب ثم قال إنما أهلك الذين قبلكم أنهم كانوا إذا سرق فيهم الشريف تركوه وإذا سرق فيهم الضعيف أقاموا عليه الحد ويم الله لو أن فاطمة بنت محمد سرقت لقطعت يدها. He says that the problem is that people before, when a noble person from a tribe or society would steal, they would let it go. And when a weak person from the society or from a tribe would steal, they would punish the person. Therefore he said, he swore by God, that even if Fatima bint Muhammad, his own daughter, would be engaged in a shameful act like that, I would be the one to cut her hand. This is again talks about a responsibility that he has, fulfilling that amana, that ahd. Because first and foremost, we are responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna al-ahda kana mas'oola. That trust that you have with God, that covenant that you have with God, you will be responsible for that. So therefore, it is first and foremost, it is between you and God, and then between you and people in establishing justice. There are multiple layers of establishing justice in this case. Not only just being sincere with people and maintaining the balance of justice, but also fulfilling that which is the vertical line, human and the Creator. And this is a sound hadith. Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu anha mentions this hadith. Also in another hadith, An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that there are matters in which there is no excuse for anyone. Treating parents well, number one. So you should not do otherwise. Number one is treating parents well. Number two, fulfilling promises. And here we have a highlight, whether towards Muslims or non-Muslims. Fulfilling promises. And number three, fulfilling trusts. The trust, something is entrusted to you, you are making sure that you are responsible for that trust. Again, whether it belongs to Muslims or non-Muslims. This is narrated in the book of Shu'ab al-Iman of Imam al-Bayhaqi, rahimahullah ta'ala. Remember the story of Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah was the trustworthy. He had this laqab as well, the trustworthy of the ummah. In other words, everybody can trust him. He's known in the ummah to be the trustworthy person. When he invaded Homs in Syria, people, those who did not become Muslims, they had to pay their taxes. Muslims, they had to pay zakat, the jizya. So the non-Muslims, they had to pay the jizya. So Abu Ubaidah was facing an army, a very huge army. They say approximately 100,000 soldiers from the Byzantine Empire, which was considered to be the most powerful empire at that time, together with the Persian Empire. So he gave back to the people all the money that he collected from them, from these non-Muslims. And he said, take your shares. Why? Because I don't think that I might be able at this point to protect you. Because the jizya, the tax, a part of it is also guaranteeing protection to everybody in that place. Maintaining the army, fighting for the people. So when he saw that he has approximately 30,000 people and the opposite army, they have close to 100,000 people, he said, you know what? I'm afraid that I cannot protect you at this point. He gave back all of that money. And they prayed for him. Non-Muslims prayed for him that may God bring you back. This is the justice. This is the fairness. This is the honesty of Muslims. When people are honest, trustworthy, even those who may not necessarily belong to your own tradition, they will still respect you and even pray for you that you become the leader. Now, also another hadith in regards to dealing with people, doing business with people. Because a lot of people, when they do business, that is one thing that they slip. They make promises, they don't fulfill their promises. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, in regards to that, he says very clearly in the Sunan of Ibn Majah, the truthful and trustworthy Muslim businessman will be raised on the day of judgment with martyrs. Subhanallah, this is a very, very high caliber. This is a very high state that somebody can be in. If you are a businessman, you do dealings, transactions with people, and you're honest, trustworthy, then you will be resurrected with the martyrs. When Luqman al-Hakim was asked, Luqman al-Hakim, we all know, there is even a chapter in the Quran named after him, Surah al-Luqman. Some say he was a prophet, some say he was a wise man. Regardless, he was asked a question. How did you reach this rank? for being so wise? He replied, through speaking the truth, fulfilling trusts, and avoiding unnecessary actions. In other words, matters that don't belong to me, I just avoid those. Saying the truth and fulfilling the trust. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who are trustworthy people, and may Allah make us among those who are always honest, and as a result of that, they have that strong integrity with them. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله حمد الكاملين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه تعظيما لنبيه وتكريما لفخامة شأن شاف صفيه. فقال عز وجل من قائل مخبرا وآمرا إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. وارض اللهم عن ساداتنا أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن أهل بيت رسول الله وأصحابه الكرام والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اغفر المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك قريب مجيب دعوات. اللهم انصرنا على أنفسنا. اللهم انصر المسلمين والمسلمات. اللهم انصر إخواننا المسلمين في فلسطين. اللهم أيدهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار يا أرحم الراحمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. عباد الله، يقول تعالى إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.